Welcome to my class. I am Dr. N. Geeta, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, PG, PSG College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. In this lecture, we are going to study about thermal pollution and nuclear hazards. Thermal pollution. Discharge of hot water into the environment or to the nearby river is the major cause of thermal pollution. Power plant or industries use the water from river and used it as coolant or heat the water to produce the steam to run the turbines for generating electricity. Then they discharge the heated water, usually above 150 degrees centigrade, back to the river or any other water source that cause thermal pollution. The warm temperature reduces the dissolved oxygen content in water and increase the metabolism in aquatic organisms, example fish. Temperature fluctuation in the water near the power plant due to the periodic plant shutdowns that causes mortality of fish, because the fish that are surviving in the water nearby the thermal power plant are acclimatized to live in the warm water, but the thermal power station is temporarily shut down because of periodical maintenance or by any other reason that influences or that causes mass mortality of fish, because the temperature fluctuation in the water will not be tolerated by the fishes. The tropical marine invertebrates like sponges, mollusks and crustaceans, they are stenothermal organisms. It means they cannot tolerate a wide fluctuation or ranges in temperature. So in that case, these sponges, mollusks and crustaceans cannot survive above 37 degrees Celsius water temperature. So this results in change in the diversity of fauna in marine ecosystem. And how to control the thermal pollution means, first one, cooling pond. The heated water should be temporarily stored in the open cooling pond. The heat will be dissipated into the atmosphere and the water can be reused as coolant or discharged into the river as the temperature drops down because of the cooling effect of the pond. The same water can be transferred to the cooling tower. When compared to the pond, cooling tower occupies a small area and most of the heat transferred into the atmosphere about 100 meters above the tower by evaporative cooling. The warm water that comes from the condenser is sprayed down over the vertical sheets and the cool air from the water inlet encircles the base of the tower and rises the upward, that causing evaporative cooling. And disadvantage is large amount of water will be lost by evaporation process. The next we are going to study about nuclear hazards. Nuclear power is used to generate electricity, but several accidents in nuclear power plants that raised worldwide concern about safety and disposal of nuclear waste. 17% of electrical energy production in the world comes from nuclear power plants. How to process the nuclear fuels? Processing the nuclear fuel is the crucial part because which has the huge impact in the environment. For example, uranium 235. From uranium ore, 70 to 90% of uranium oxide is produced. Natural uranium contains only 0.7% of fissionable uranium 235, which is an isotope of uranium, which is not sufficient for most of the nuclear power plant. 0.7% of uranium 235 is not sufficient for nuclear power plant, and hence uranium should go uranium enrichment process. So hence uranium enrichment is necessary because the available uranium 235 of 0.7% can be increased to 3% by uranium enrichment. Let's see what does it mean, uranium enrichment. A fuel fabrication is a process that converts the enriched uranium 235 to powder form, and then it is compressed into pellets. The pellets are sealed in metal fuel rods, and the fuel rods are loaded into the reactor. So in this way, uranium enrichment can reach the reactors. So when the fuel rods are loaded into the reactors, that causes the radiation and fissionable reactions. So after 3 years, these rods should be replaced with new rods. Why? Because there won't be of much uranium 235. Uranium 235 is a radioactive element, and by nuclear decay process, it emits the radiation and it converts into a stable form. Okay. So after 3 years, these rods should be replaced with new rods, as there won't be of much uranium 35 for power generation. Now, the spent rods that contain low amount of uranium 235, but they still have radioactivity. But that radioactivity is not sufficient to generate the electricity. Hence, the spent rods can become a nuclear waste material. So now the spent rods that contains low amount of uranium 235, and still it can be a pollutant to the environment if it is not properly disposed. And during the nuclear decay, uranium 235 will be converted into plutonium. And disposing such fuel rods are the major source of radioactive pollution. Reprocessing for reusing the spent fuel rods are expensive than the production cost of new fuel rods. You can think that why should we dispose these rods, instead we can be reused. But reprocessing for reusing, that consumes a lot of money, and the production cost of a new fuel is much cheaper than reprocessing. And even though the nuclear power has significant benefits, several accidents in power plants that change the world's perception towards nuclear power. And here I have given 3 different types of accident. The one, Chernobyl disaster that happened in Ukraine 1986. Chernobyl is the city in Ukraine where this nuclear disaster happened in 1986. Why they happened? Because of the inexperience in management. Because at that time the people are not completely aware of impact of nuclear hazards. So because of that, practical inexperience, improper management that caused that disaster. So it is by accident. The next example, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear explosion that happened in Japan in 2011, is an example for natural disaster. The earthquake near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that caused explosion. And the last one is a man-made purposeful disaster, nuclear atom bomb disaster in Hiroshima and Nagasaki that happened in World War II in 1945. And the name of the atom bomb that dropped in Hiroshima is called Little Boy. And the name of the atom bomb which was dropped in Nagasaki are called Fat Boy. Fat Boy. Okay. Let's see the effect of nuclear radiation. There are different factors that determines the intensity of damage. One, amount of radiation. How much amount of radiation happened, that is an important factor. And number two, the duration of exposure. How many minutes or how many hours you are exposed. These two factors that actually determines the intensity of damage. And while you are exposed into a radiation, the first defect is mutation occurs in your DNA, and that causes congenital abnormalities. Irradiated ovaries and sperm produce defective gametes. As a result, there is a high chances of miscarriages. And cancer is the other important disease caused due to the intensity of radiation. The cancer, the most common cancer because of the radiation is leukemia and skin cancer and even the breast cancer. So instead of using this nuclear power plant in a safe game, we can switch to the normal or eco-friendly alternative method. For example, windmill and solar power plant can be adopted as an eco-friendly alternative method to generate the electricity. And this picture that shows the Chernobyl accident, look at all the windows and everything is literally exploded. This is in Ukraine. This one is Fukushima power plant in Japan. This picture shows before that explosion, and this one is the after the explosion in thermal power plant. See, this is a concrete heavy block that even couldn't sustain the radioactive material, so it get exploded. And this is an icon or the symbol of nuclear atomic bomb dropped. For example, Hiroshima Peace Memorial Dome. It is an iconic symbol. This is the actual building that got exposed to the atom bomb. Look at the dome. The roof is completely exploded, and this is the actual building that get exposed to the atom bomb. So they have put the fence and they have preserved the entire area where the atom bomb was dropped, and they have constructed the Peace Memorial and Museum where you can see the impact of atom bombs, and from here you can observe this dome. A mushroom cloud. While they dropped the atom bomb, the iconic event happened. And you see, this is called a mushroom cloud where the actual atom bomb was dropped. And around 200 or 250 kilometers at the radius, all the life is instantly disappeared. It means that their bones, their skin, everything get dissolved and melted. Literally all the skin is get melted, tissues get melted instantly, and they left only the trace or the shadow. So that is the huge impact of atom bomb. Okay, in this class you have experienced the impact of nuclear radiation and the thermal power station.